Chapter 22. Although it didn't rain, the weather was still bad. It was predicted that a typhoon would strike tonight, and the low-pressure dark clouds in the sky were quickly rolled over by the wind. Everyone's mood is the same as this weather, low and depressed. Instead, the habit of arranging multiple trivial details in the past, today's chase almost gave up all props and backgrounds, and completely relied on the existing environment to shoot. The dressmaker ran away in a fit of anger, and Chase didn't ask anyone to find a new top, just let me change my shirt for a few pairs of jeans. No one dared to provoke Chase, the original script setting was completely useless, and we all silently followed Chase's impromptu orders. So I took the most quiet and indifferent set of photos I have ever worked with Chase. Everyone's mood was very low, and I couldn't force a smile, so I just turned a cold face and walked according to the plan set by Chase temporarily. It's really wonderful, I think. The sky is stern and I am also stern. Such a cool advertising effect may be liked by manufacturers. During the break, I received a call from Jia Yin, saying that Min was coming back today, and we had dinner together at night. She had already called Oh Young in my mind, now she called me to ask where I am, and when I could be there. I estimated that I would be able to finish work in about 2 hours, so I replied to Jia Yun that I and Chase were filming in the Pearl Tower of the pier, and we would go there together later. Chase almost didn't speak to me all afternoon, just mechanically filming, gesturing to change positions, or occasionally shouting to explain the action. I informed him about tonight dinner, but he only responded lightly. Despite the bad atmosphere, I still think today's shots will come out well. Chase chose a good location. The view from here is very good. Below is the old factory area. In the past, there was a freight terminal and a large area of the river. The roof has not had time to do greening. The rough environment and the dark and cramped gray low altitude, which create a cold and depressing atmosphere. The coldness and indifference I showed today, and the neutral decadence and sloppiness fit the atmosphere very well. And Chase has always turned the rotten into a magical shooting technique, so even if the worst situation is in his hands, he can still give off a unique flavor. In the evening, when all the shots were completed, everyone packed up and dispersed. I simply removed my makeup and changed my clothes, so my colleagues could take it back to the studio. I went out to find Chase to go to the bar with me. I asked a few people and they said they didn't see Chase. Is he still on the rooftop? I thought about it and climbed up the roof again. Sure enough, I saw Chase, lying on his back and looking at the sky. The clouds are lower, the sky is darker, the wind is obviously stronger, and the air is wet with moisture brought by the typhoon from the sea. I sat down beside Chase cross-legged, didn't speak, just looked into the distance quietly. There is a ray of light in the place where heaven and earth communicate. It may be raining heavily. In my impression, the sky is always dark before the rain, but it will be brighter when the rain falls. After a long time, Chase suddenly said, "Xiaobai, please go first. I want to be alone." The voice was a little strange. I didn't say anything, and just as I was about to speak, the mobile phone in my pocket suddenly rang. When I saw it was Jia Yin, I didn't press it. But after a while the phone rang again and I pressed it off. When the bell rang for the third time, I was about to answer when Chase sat up suddenly, grabbed the phone, and threw it away. In a graceful arc, the phone turned over in the air and flew out from the edge of the rooftop. I turned around in amazement, only to see Chase's face full of mania and resentment. His lips and cheeks were like white paper, and a violent light flashed from his phoenix eyes. He suddenly punched the ground, put his hands on his head again, and let out a hoarse growl, "Don't bother me. Why don't you just leave me alone?" Chase now looked like a wounded wolf. I wasn't angry at Chase's rude behavior, I had the same feeling. That feeling of loneliness, the emptiness that nobody cares about and nobody needs, can sometimes really destroy a person's heart. I've also had thoughts of letting myself die. I don't know what Chase is going through in traumatic, but if he needs quiet, I can walk right away. I stood up and wanted to leave, but Chase grabbed my wrist again. I'm sorry, Xiaobai, can you stay and sit with me for a while? I lowered my head and saw that Chase was looking up at me, his face full of expression of begging. I sighed, nodded, and sat down again. It was getting dark, the lights on both sides of the street were lit, and the neon lights illuminated the surrounding sky. We live in a city that never sleeps. The wind became stronger and stronger, because it was some distance from the commercial area, and it was on the top of the 42-story building. The surroundings were very quiet, only the whistling wind passed by. We were silent for a long time, each thinking about our own thoughts, and the two seemed to have turned into two statues, relatively silent. My family is in Hong Kong. My father died when I was 3 years old. I don't have much impression of him, but I know he is a tall and handsome man who likes to wear pure white shirts. Chase said softly, whispering, as if just talking to himself. I listened silently. When I was 6 years old, everything that could be sold in the family had already been sold, and the family moved smaller and smaller. Only the father's box of white shirts was always carried by my mother, and I carried it with me every time I moved. It's me. He smiled wryly. My mother was a beautiful woman, but she was unlucky. The men she met after my father died were all bastards. They just wanted to cheat her for money, and they left after cheating. Xiaobai, I didn't hate my mother at all at that time, it was just that I feel bad for her because she always cry. Cry and cry, cry and cry. Afterwards, our environment gradually improved, and I felt very happy because my mother stopped crying. Although she seldom laughed, at least she did not cry. She had spent less time with me. Maybe she felt sorry, so she bought one. A very good camera for me to play with. My father used to be a photographer, but we didn't keep the camera after he died and sold it. I like photography. You can record the most beautiful, sad and ugliest things. Evidence that won't fall. Chase narrated like a babble, somewhat fragmented, but still understandable. Then I went to boarding school, which was very expensive. My mother wouldn't let me go home and wanted me to study hard. She would come to see me every week and hug me tightly when she left. I knew she was crying, but I didn't know why. Maybe she not willing to let me go, I think. Once my mother came late and was drunk. She hugged me and cried, begging me for forgiveness while crying, saying that she was a sinner, a devil and would go to hell. I cried too. I said no, my mother is the most beautiful in the world, the cutest woman. You wouldn't believe that I didn't go home for 8 years, while living in boarding school. The greatest joy is to wait for the arrival of my mother. She didn't let me go home, so I obeyed. Well, like my father, I like pure white shirts, and my mother will give me a dozen new ones every season, all pure white shirts of famous brands. When she sees me wearing these clothes, her face is so gentle. I think she thinks of my father. But when I was in preparatory school, she didn't come to see me for 2 weeks in a row, she just called me to study obediently. By the 3rd week, she still didn't come, and I couldn't help sneaking home. At that time, she had moved, and I ran to the new address to see that it was a 2-story white house on the middle of the mountain. I knocked on the door but no one answered, and I couldn't get in without the key. I waited until the middle of the night to see a black car. Bentley drove up. I wanted to meet her, but 2 people got out of the car. Besides her, there was another person, a half-old man. I quietly hid in the shadows of the trees. She hugged the old man. I heard her laugh. It was so cheap. I kind of understand, but I still don't blame her. Chase's voice sharpened. I noticed, by the time he stopped calling his mother mother, he pronounced the word she in a tone of disgust. I was listening by the window, and the old man laughed and said, "Where's your white shirt? I heard that you got famous for your pure white shirt pole dancing, and now you're at the mommy level, let me see it." I don't wear a white shirt anymore. She first refused, but the old man seemed to be very consistent, so she went upstairs, and when she came down, she was wearing my father's white shirt. Haha. You know what's in the middle of that living room? It's a steel pole, a steel pole. I haven't seen her dance, but she can actually dance, or a pole striptease. She's wearing my father's and my favorite pure white shirt, with black lace underwear. I saw her hovering like a snake on the pole, and then she and the old man made peace in the living room. The living room. They didn't even care if anyone saw it. As disgusting as a slut. I vomited outside. Then I secretly went to see her every day and saw her coming back with different men. Sometimes she would dance in a white shirt. Pure white shirt. Haha, I vomit every day, but still come back every day. Chase's emotions became more and more excited. He grabbed my arm. His eyes were bloodshot. Actually, I don't blame her, but why she spoiled my father and my favorite things like this? I'd rather she dress up like a peacock. Ah no, yes, she's so beautiful, with eyes as tender as a deer, and a white shirt suits her best, but I don't want her to wear it like this. Do you understand? Do you understand? He suddenly grabbed my hand and buried his face in his palm. I was admitted to England to study. I wanted to avoid her, but I always dreamed that my father, her, and me when we were young, we all wore pure white shirt, just like angels. We can take off the clothes, only she is still wearing black lace underwear, black like a river in hell, and then slowly falling. I can't catch her, I can't catch her. Warm liquid was gradually flowing in my palms, dripping along my fingers. I hate her so much. I have been avoiding her, but I still think of her. Hating her has become a habit and a source of inspiration for me. Last year, I went to see her every day, secretly and enthusiastically watching her, and quietly assigned the key to the house to touch everything she had. Oh, I remember her every little movement and every decoration in the room. I hate her so much, and she knows I hate her, but she doesn't explain or ask for forgiveness. She never even approached me. She doesn't know that I miss her. I received a call from a lawyer this morning, saying that she died early in the morning and committed suicide by gas. She left me a lot of property, but she died. I don't know what to do with her money after her death. I'm rich myself. And I don't need her to strip in a white shirt. She's dead. Suicide. Haha. The laughter gradually turned into a whimper. Chase's cry in my palm sounded like a wounded wolf howling, hopeless and helpless. I patted Chase's back gently, like comforting a helpless baby. I deeply sympathize with the man in front of me, what painful memories he has, and what a broken life he has. In order to forget or to remember the most important person in his life, he would torture his soul like this. Compared to Chase, I've been so lucky. Chase slowly raised his head. His eyes were empty and confused. He just stared at me with such a desperate look, and didn't say anything for a long time. I got worried and shook his shoulder gently. Chase. If you want to cry, just cry, don't hold it back. Chase. Chase shivered and held out his hands to hold my face. How beautiful you are, with eyes like a fawn. You are so. Don't be like this, Chase. Relax, everything will pass. I was a little scared. Chase's eyes were so weird, as if he had completely lost himself. I tried my best to comfort and calm him down, but it seemed to be useless, and before the words were finished, Chase's face was already bent down fiercely, and his lips covered mine. It was a violent kiss, as if it were going to suck my whole life out of it. I was horrified and tried to struggle, but Chase held the back of my head with one hand, and wrapped my body like a hoop with the other, preventing me from moving. Just when I was almost suffocating, Chase left my lip. He lowered his head and kissed my neck. His hand had already torn half of my sleeves. It sent me a strongly disturbing message, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't get out of Chase's arms. His arms were so powerful, they were tightly bound to me with almost like tyrannical chains. I screamed, "No. Chase, are you crazy? Let go. The two buttons on the chest have been torn out, and the neckline has slipped open to reveal the black lace straps, which obviously irritated Chase. He shoved me to the ground, and shouted furiously, "Why? Why? Why Dad's favorite white shirt? You don't deserve to wear it." He roared up to the sky, like a furious god. I took the opportunity to get up and ran toward the door, but Chase caught me before I took 2 steps. He threw me out, my body lost my center of gravity, I fell on the edge of the roof, my forehead slammed on the parapet wall, and the viscous liquid dripped down. The huge fear overcomes the pain. I want to stand up and run away, but my ankle also seems to be sprained. I couldn't concentrate. Chase's tall figure is gradually approaching. Chase knelt down beside me, held my chin in one hand and lifted it up, gritted his teeth and said, "I don't want you to be a virtuous woman, but at least you don't insult those beautiful memories." I reached out and tried to push him away, but I was grabbed by both hands. Chase was like a mad beast. He pushed me down again, grabbed my wrists high with one hand. I hit my forehead on the gravel ground, he tearing my shirt mercilessly with one hand. The broken corners of my clothes were raised high, and I was almost naked under the dark cloudy sky with black lace underwear. In the dark night, the pale skin became more and more pale, so pale and bloodless, just like Chase's face. Chase's whole body began to tremble, trembling like a leaf in the autumn wind. His fingers drifted gently on my body, his fingertips were as cold as ice. How beautiful, as white as the holy snow of the Taishan Mountains. What a beautiful collarbone. What a beautiful skin, what a beautiful lace. His fingertips slowly flowed like water, and his icy palm gradually covered my soft and violently undulating chest. Chase buried his face in my neck and burst into tears. I bit my lip tightly, and the smell of fishy sweet gradually spread in my mouth. Chase began to cry, and the strength to subdue me was a little slack. I did not hesitate to raise my leg and bend my knees to hit him. Breathing heavily, I tried to step back and stand up, but I still couldn't run. The parapet wall is about 1 meter wide. I sat on the edge and hung my 2 legs on the outer edge. Below is the empty outer wall. If I miss a step, I will fall straight from the 42 floors, shattering my body and never recovered. In dizziness, I stretched out my hand and hugged my shoulder tightly. The wound on my forehead was burning, my wrist was swollen, and the bruised areas are also hot and sore. Chase got up slowly, his face contorted in pain. He tried to come over, but was shocked by my decisive look. We stared at each other and got stuck again. Without warning, the rain poured down, we were soaked in an instant, and the wind was blowing. I almost fell off the parapet wall. The icy cold rain poured down, and Chase gradually returned to his sanity. Looking at my frail appearance, he smiled sadly, and suddenly raised his hand to hit his face hard, and a low and angry roar came out of his throat. He turned around and ran away. It took me a long time to turn over from the parapet wall to climb back down, almost falling directly to the ground. I was close to the wall, trembling violently. On windy and rainy nights, I sat alone against the wall, afraid of the deep, deep sadness that would follow. I can't forget Chase's despairing and mournful face, such a deep sadness like a burst of water that quickly obliterated the entire night. End of chapter 22.